Hi everyone! Today I'm showing you my easy tofu and veggie stir fry with black rice noodles and an almond butter sauce. If you need to make substitutions for any of the ingredients, I'll give you options through the video, and the full recipe will be linked in the details below the video. I came up with this recipe a couple years ago, and I've actually only made it a few times, but it's one of my parents' favorite meals, so they make it all the time. There are a few different steps in this recipe, but they're all really simple. The thing that takes the longest is the tofu, so I'll get started on that. But if you're avoiding tofu for any reason, you could skip this step altogether and simply add whatever your favorite beans are to the stir fry later. I would recommend roasted chickpeas. So instead of baking the tofu like I'm going to do, you could roast chickpeas instead for a nice crispy topping. I'll include information for that option in the recipe below as well. But I'm using an extra firm tofu, which has been frozen and defrosted. This gives it a really nice chewy texture, which is what I'm going for this recipe. To freeze your tofu, you simply leave it in the package it came in and put it in the freezer. Whenever you're ready to use it, make sure you take it out the day before to defrost in the refrigerator. Once your tofu is defrosted, we'll dump the excess water out. And then I like to squeeze just a little bit more of the water out. You don't have to worry about pressing the tofu, just gently squeeze it to get that moisture out. And then I'm going to crumble the tofu into bite-sized pieces. This is sort of like how you would crumble tofu to make a tofu scramble, but I'm doing it in a little bit larger pieces than I would normally do for a tofu scramble. You can make the pieces whatever size you like though, it doesn't really matter. The smaller pieces will get nice and crispy, and the larger pieces will be crispy on the outside and chewy on the inside. So it's nice to have a little bit of both. Next, I'll make my tofu marinade. I'm adding granulated garlic and onion, and then I'm adding coconut aminos. You could also use tamari or soy sauce, but I like to use the coconut aminos because they have a little less sodium. If you're avoiding sodium altogether, you might want to use a high-quality balsamic vinegar instead. Something from California Balsamic would be a good option. And then of course, adjust this to your own tastes. I would recommend using about 2 to 3 teaspoons of the coconut aminos. Next, I'm adding 3 teaspoons of rice vinegar. And then I'll whisk that up. Next, I'll pour this over the tofu. And then just mix it around a little bit. When you use the method of freezing and defrosting the tofu, it really soaks up marinades easily, so you just have to squish it around and stir it up a little bit. And that's it. And then I realized I needed a larger bowl for the next step, so make sure you have a large enough bowl. We're just going to coat this with a little bit of chickpea flour. You could also use cornstarch. This is just to give it a little bit of a crispy outside. Now, this won't be like a fried coating, it just gives it a nice little bit of crispness on the edges. And we'll simply toss that around. And then spread the tofu out evenly on a baking sheet with either a silicone mat or parchment paper. I'm going to bake this in a 375 Fahrenheit oven for about 15 to 20 minutes until it starts to get crispy. At this point, I'll also start heating up a pot of water to cook our noodles. I'm using these black rice noodles, which are really delicious. They're made just with black and brown rice, but you could also substitute with regular rice noodles or buckwheat noodles, or if you're avoiding grains, you might try something like a lentil spaghetti pasta. I haven't tried this recipe with that, but I'm sure it would be just fine. And then I'm also getting a large skillet ready to cook our veggies. I'm using 2 bags of these Chinese-style stir-fry blend veggies. This is my favorite combination to use in this recipe, but if you're not able to find this, you could use whatever frozen veggies you like. This one includes a combination of green beans, broccoli, carrots, red peppers, onions, and mushrooms. Of course, you could also chop your own veggies, so you could make whatever combination you like. Since we have to wait for the tofu anyway, there's time to chop veggies if you wanted to, but I really like the convenience of these frozen veggies. So I'm simply going to dump both bags into my skillet, heat them up at a medium-high heat until they're warmed through. My tofu's been baking for about 15 minutes, so now I'm just going to stir it around and put it back in the oven for another 15 minutes or so. At this point, you'll want to make sure to start cooking your veggies if you haven't already. And when your water's boiling, cook your noodles. This way, everything will be ready at about the same time. These black rice noodles do tend to stick together, so I don't recommend making them ahead of time because they'll just clump together. You'll want to cook them and put them directly into your stir fry and mix it around with the sauce. While the veggies and noodles are cooking, I'll make my stir fry sauce. I'm using 2 tablespoons of almond butter, but you could use any kind of nut or seed butter that you like. Peanut butter, cashew butter, tahini, or even sunflower seed butter would work. Try to find one that doesn't have added salt, oil, and sugar. I like ones that are just one ingredient, so this almond butter just has almonds in it. If you're avoiding nut butters or high-fat foods, you could do a lower fat option by using something like PB2 Pure. This is just made out of peanuts that have had the fat removed, and then they're ground up into a powder, so you rehydrate it with some water and use the same amount. That company also makes a cashew powder now that is also just made with cashews that had the fat removed. Any of these options should work just fine. I've also added more coconut aminos and rice vinegar. Once again, you could substitute with a flavored balsamic vinegar of your choice. But most of the flavor is coming from this spice blend. I'm using za'atar. Once again, if you're avoiding salt, be careful with your spice blends. This one that I use does have a little bit of salt added. It also has sesame seeds and sumac. If you've never had sumac before, I highly recommend it. You could also simply use a little bit of that if you didn't have a za'atar blend. Finally, I'm adding a little bit of water to loosen this sauce up. You'll add however much water you like to get it to the consistency you want. And then I'll set this aside so it's ready to go when everything else is done cooking. I put the lid on my veggies just to steam them a little bit, and then I'll take that off to let all of the extra water evaporate. Make sure you stir your noodles every once in a while so they don't stick together. And once they're done cooking, you'll drain them and add them right to the skillet with the veggies. Give the sauce another stir. If you need to add any more water, you can, and then pour it all over and mix everything together. Then you'll top your stir fry with that chewy, crispy tofu. Or, like I said at the beginning, you could use roasted chickpeas instead. I'm so excited to give this a taste. It's been a while since I made this recipe, but it smells so delicious. If you've never tried za'atar seasoning before, it's amazing. So I'm gonna get a bite here with some of the noodles and all of the veggies, and then of course a little piece of that tofu. So let's try it out. You have to give this one a try. It has everything. The flavor is bright, the texture is amazing with the chewy tofu, plus lots of crunchy pieces of tofu, and then you've got the noodles and all the veggies. What more could you want? If you like this video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and subscribe for more whole food plant-based meal ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.